Welcome back to RTK Adventures. I'm TK. Today, Renee is at work and I took the day off, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to cover one of the topics I've been wanting to showcase on our channel recently. I had a conversation with a friend and subscriber about some topics that we could look to feature Renee and I on our channel. And one of the conversations was leading in regards to how do we go about planning our away baseball trips. We're fortunate enough here in Madison, Wisconsin to be within an 8.5 hour drive of 9 stadiums. So I wanted to go ahead and cover kind of what it goes into, how we pick weekends, what planning is involved as far as looking at costs, the factors that go in, as well as kind of proximity, ease of travel, and hope to go into some of the spreadsheets and show those to you here, as well as kind of look at, let's plan one trip to Detroit. So I plan to do kind of a walkthrough of what we would typically do on a road trip. This year with COVID, those are an added restrictions on how comfortable we are to be traveling to specified stadiums. Some may have some really stringent restrictions that make us more comfortable to attend a game with more fan separation, to stadiums that are opening up at full capacity. Texas Rangers and Arlington are going to be opening up at 100%. So those kind of factors are also going to play into what stadiums we go into. So let's get into the spreadsheet. So in the spreadsheet, I list here how many of the 9 home teams are within an 8.5 hour drive of us. I'm only looking at weekend dates. We don't have currently any weekend or week trips planned this year. So then I list out the various weeks through week 1 through week 27 here at the bottom. Each weekend is a 3-day Friday to Sunday, with the exception of the first 2 weekends. Those are typically when the home team is hosting their first series. They play their home game on Thursday, then they have Friday to kind of make up should there be any inclement weather that day on Thursday. So these first 2 weekends are Thursday to Sunday. The remaining are Friday to Sunday. So once I've got all the 9 teams that are listed out here, I then pick who is going to be at home that weekend and list who they are playing. So I look at the calendar and I go through all the weeks. So the Cubs play the Pirates in week 1. They're off week 2, so I leave them blank. They host the Braves on week 3, and then they host the Brewers on week 4. So then they're off again these next couple of days. So I go through all these teams and list who they are playing for that given weekend. Once I go ahead and get those all listed, I kind of look at what are some series matchups that interest us. For us being Minnesota Twins fans, the Brewers series here in Milwaukee interests us, so I put them as a green. This is the Twins home opener, so that also interests us. So we plan to, these are green, means that they're confirmed as well. So these are the 2 series that we have to start the year. Yellow means that it is a tentatively planned or potential planned weekend, and the red one is a backup plan should the yellow one not work out. It doesn't mean that we're going to be going somewhere in week 3, but if the opportunity and budget provides it, we'll go ahead and look at one of those 2 cities where we'll leave the other 2 out. So that's kind of how I go about listing out kind of what this all is. So if you see the com behind this stands for commemorative. The Atlanta Braves this year are having commemorative baseballs, a specialized baseball that they use at their home that they may bring on the road that's unknown at this time. So you'll have another Braves series here. And then we also have the Angels. The Anaheim Angels are also having a commemorative baseball this year. So that's where I've listed that one as well. So once I get kind of into the various yellow, red, what works, what may not work, I then, at the bottom here, we also have another confirmed series going to Kansas City. That's the final weekend of the series. It's always nice to see that final game of the season, whether your team is in it and heading to the playoffs or they're just wrapping up the season. I've tend to found that if you're wrapping up the season, the players are leaving the ballpark and not going on to the playoffs, they tend to throw some of their gear up into the crowd. So that's kind of why I have that listed. And then the asterisk explains why these are a Thursday, Friday, needing to take off the day. On tab 2 here, I kind of then break down the factors. I've got the destinations here, And this is where I put the number of days, including our travel days. So if we're traveling to Chicago Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I put a 3 there. If we leave on Friday and take Friday off, we can get in 3 games. So that's kind of where this, and I'll explain this a little bit further later. These black is where I just leave it blank. This is the how far in miles each way a stadium is from us. Our furthest stadium is Cleveland baseball team. The travel time is listed here as well, with Cleveland being the furthest, tied closely with Kansas City, being 8.5 hours. So for the meals here, I list these out as $100 per day. That's gives Renee and I $10 for breakfast, $15 for lunch, and $25 for dinner. So that puts it at $50 when you take the 10, the 15, and the 25 breakfast, lunch, and dinner times 2 people. So for each day that we are there, so if we go back here and say we're only traveling 1 day for 1 game, it'll then show that it's only 1 day of travel, so that's $100. Any of these green categories, we do not change the numbers. It's already pre-calculated based on a factor. Based on our miles per gallon, on average, we average 28 miles per gallon. So to go 151 miles 2 ways at 302 miles, it takes 10.79 gallons. And then we put in the factor, what is the average cost of fuel at that time? Let's say fuel goes up to $3. So that factors into our cost. So it helps me kind of gauge what our fuel cost is. Something that's going to be so unpredictable this year with the limited amount of fans is what is our average cost per ticket? We like to stick under $100 per game when we go, so $50 a ticket. So if it's a series that is very popular where the ticket prices are more high, we may need to factor in a higher budget, and we'll get into how I look at tickets and ticket prices in a bit. And then we've got the parking. In Chicago, we only need to pay for parking because we usually find a spot to park and leave our vehicle there for the 3 days, and then just go ahead and get it on our way out of town and take the L and other transportation such as Uber. So the parking is $25 a day, and I can talk about how we get those deals in Chicago as well. If you look at here, Kansas City, you would think that Kansas City might be a lower cost for parking. However, Kansas City is one where we typically stay downtown, where we pay for parking there with in and out privileges, but then you also have to factor in the cost of stadium parking, which tends to be $15 to $20. So that really doubles our cost for parking when we go to Kansas City. So then we get our total parking cost, and then our average hotel night. We utilize Hotwire, not paid advertisement. We use Hotwire to kind of search out what the costs are, and as our leading into the weekend, we drop the kind of cost into that as well. And then as we scroll along to the right here a little bit further, miscellaneous charges. If we're going to do any tours or any sightseeing, we usually put in some extra cost there. And then this gives us our total trip cost. That one looks really low because I had changed previously that we were only going for 1 day. So if we typically would do Chicago 3 days, 2 games, we're at about $1,000. So it's a pretty hefty price for a 2-day road trip. So some of the factors are into that, and again, these are more high price scenarios where we look at worst case and try to budget for that, and then have our costs come in under that, and then we can shift whatever savings we had from that trip to our future trip. So that's kind of how the breakdown of the costs are and how I go about that. Scrolling down here a bit is, again, the highlight here is just to show only the white cells are what I adjust, and I do not touch the green. It all modifies it when I add anything to the white cells. So here is just kind of the destination. This are our weekend factors. When to leave on vacation. So if we're doing a weekend trip, when can we leave if we take a vacation day for Friday? For Chicago, we can leave in the morning on Friday. It's a pretty close distance for us. The trips that are over 7 hours, we typically leave the Thursday night to drive through, get there around 1 or 2 a.m. So Thursday p.m., so that gives us some sleep. So we're not rolling into a stadium the morning of. when we go to an away stadium. So these are factors on when we leave, if we are able to have fortunate enough to be able to take vacation on a Friday. When we do take vacation on Friday, that allows us to maximize our game experience and get the most amount of games in. If we happen to, again, sometimes we're not as fortunate with vacation, so we have to leave on Friday where we leave after work. So when we leave after work, those are listed here, and then these are the number of games we can get in. Milwaukee's close enough that we can leave Saturday AM or Sunday AM to get the game in. And then here, when do we have to leave to return? Most games we leave packed right from the game. Chicago, Minneapolis, and a couple others being really close. We can almost leave from a little bit after the game because they're under 5 hours. And then we just I just put some factors in. Ease of travel, I ranked 1 through 10. What is the easiest travel? I ranked kind of looking at what is the easiest of travel, trying to think, more interstate versus hopping between highway versus interstate. So that's kind of how I factored in kind of 1 through 9, my ranking. Cost effective, what is the most cost effective? My parents are in Minneapolis, so that really brings our cost down when we go to Minnesota to travel. Milwaukee being mostly day trips, it's just a quick drive, so it's really most cost effective. And then you've got Chicago, which is more close to us as far as getting to, so it helps us on travel. We tend to also get some lower cost hotel. Number 9, Kansas City being kind of our we tend to like to do a lot of fun things when we're in Kansas City, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, to name one. We like to eat a lot of barbecue, so that kind of adds to the cost effectiveness of Kansas City. Vacation ideal means that I put a 5 to give us a higher number. If it's ideal to have a vacation day, that's a negative factor to me. The lower number is best. So I put any time where we typically need to take a vacation day as a non-ideal trip. I added 5 to that. Non-baseball activities, I ranked which ones do we like for non-baseball activities, 1 through 9. And then we get a total score factor based on these 4 factors. And then based on that, I look kind of at rankings to see what is our overall ranking, what is our preferred trip. So if it's between a 3 and a 2, we might easily choose the 2 if that's the most cost effective with the overall rankings. But let's say there's a trip that is ranked as a 7. We really want to make it work out that weekend. We'll kind of factor in cost to this. So the overall ranking is kind of not as relevant as it could be, but it kind of helps us kind of determine our overall, what is our top 5, top 9 places to go. So that's a little insight into our ranking pieces. So once kind of this goes forward, we then look at kind of planning our trip out and how do we go about that. So the first step is we usually look at our tickets. So I'm going to pull up StubHub here. So for April 3rd, for StubHub, currently there are 2 tickets listed. Earlier in the video, there's not much for tickets and availability right now until things get closer. So right now, these 2 tickets that are listed, typically you'll have 1,500 to 2,000 tickets listed here. So very limited right now. So certainly way over our budget. So this is one of the sites that we go ahead and go. If you aren't familiar with StubHub, you just go ahead and go to the main page. Type in the team that you're hoping to see. So if we were going to Milwaukee that weekend, we would type in Milwaukee Brewers and then go to the specified game. So that would be Saturday, April 3rd. And then I go ahead and click it, and that's where we got to where we went. Another site that we use is the site is TickPick, T-I-C-K, and that is it's a lower cost place. So you can do up the search here. They do not charge on the front end for fans, so it's a little bit cheaper than the tickets that you'll see on StubHub. So if you look at Milwaukee Brewers and we scroll down to April 3rd rather, they typically don't have all the same inventory listed on StubHub. Sometimes you'll have the same ticket listed on StubHub as well as TickPick, and then you'll typically find the TickPick ticket just slightly lower cost based on that. So I'm going to actually plan our trip to Detroit. So I'm going to close out StubHub, you kind of get the opportunity on how to go about that. But if we're going to go to Detroit, if you look at our schedule, I'm looking at Detroit here. It's in yellow right now, but we are leaning towards doing that the weekend of May 7th to 9th. That's also Mother's Day weekend, so the players tend to use a pink bat that weekend. It's nice to kind of see the celebration around mothers on that weekend. So on that weekend, we would plan to just go Saturday and Sunday. Our factors. So we're looking at Detroit. We're planning to leave Friday after work, so we're staying 3 days, and we're planning to go to 2 games, which would be Saturday and Sunday. So that puts into our meal factor. That's already calculated. If our fuel's good, we're good there. Our estimated ticket cost, once we get closer, we can kind of gauge whether we're going to be purchasing tickets through StubHub, or if we go ahead and purchase tickets through the box office if they're available. A trick for us is usually on a game where we know that ticket prices are currently listed as high and they may come down, we go ahead and purchase directly from the box office when we get to the stadium. If we have a need to know that the game might sell it, we'll buy in advance. But if we go to the stadium, we buy the lowest cost price ticket. Let's say it's a $7 ticket that costs us $14 for that ticket for that game. And then currently the StubHub tickets are listed at $100. Those tickets are likely to come down as we get closer to the game. So we'll have our ticket go into the stadium, and StubHub will list tickets an hour and a half into the game. So as the game approaches, as the game starts, we'll look at StubHub to see if those $100 tickets have come down. More often than not, we will certainly get a steal of a deal on the tickets that people are just trying to get rid of at that point, because people are already at the stadium and it's not likely those tickets will sell. So that's a little trick for us, is that we buy a cheap ticket, $14, opposed to that $100 ticket right away. And then as the game comes, those tickets might be $30, let's say. So $30 times 2 is $60, plus the $14, we're at $74, where we have 2 tickets now, but we're paying $74. Or the other hand, we could have paid $200 at the front end to get those tickets and save us those $14. We saved $130 by waiting and having a lower cost ticket. So that's kind of what goes into our ticket pricing and how we go into factoring those. In here in Detroit, Detroit's a place where we definitely get a hotel that's not necessarily downtown, because just the vicinity of Detroit has a multitude of hotels. So if we were to go to Detroit and we're looking at May 7th, and then we're going to check out May 9th, and then I just go ahead and find a hotel room. I usually look at the hot rate hotel rates and trying to find a decent rate. We usually stay in the outlying areas. So when we select hot rate, we've got, this is an all suites hotel. It's got a 4.4 rating, and it has parking included, so that helps us out with our parking. So if I go ahead and select that, so it's the 3-star hotel, I just can go ahead and click reserve. It'll then show me the full total with the room cost as well as the tax. So it's $165. So that's when I go into our hotel for Detroit. So our per night cost, I'll put that just as $85 to get that to 170. I round it up. There might be an incidental here and there. So there is our hotel cost. So that's how we factor in our hotel costs. And in Detroit, as I shared, we had parking included. So then I just need parking for the game. The Detroit Tigers do parking at Comerica Park. So if you can search parking Comerica Park, you then can go to find your event date. So May 8th happens to be a date that they have parking. So if I click on May 8th, it'll then show me what parking options we have. So you can definitely save some money. I'm not sure what the game day prices on these are, but I imagine they're much higher than listed here. I tend to stay a little further away from the stadium, just because if you look further away from the stadium, the more opportunity you have for time. In Detroit, you'll have to watch when you are doing the booking to see if they have any restrictions. This one right here begins at least 1 hour before the event and 1 hour after. So if you're wanting to get to the stadium early, this would not be one you want to book because you're not going to be able to get into the parking garage and not more than an hour early. So the stadium opens 90 minutes ahead. You're parking 30 minutes into when the stadium is already open. So you'll need to search to find a parking lot if you're wanting to get into the lot prior to the game gates opening. So that all is considered. That's kind of how we go about doing our trips and getting the full cost. So I did Detroit here. We're going 3 days, 2 nights. Our food cost, let's say we got a good deal where our estimated cost was $75, brought that cost down. Parking, as you saw, the cost was as low as $7.50, so I'm going to put that as $15. Our hotel cost was already, typically when we go to Detroit, we don't do anything too fancy, so I can probably reduce that budget to $50 for incidentals. So that trip this week, Mother's Day, will cost us about $800. So that's kind of how I look at cost for that weekend. If we were comparing it to maybe Kansas City, well, like, all right, we could go to Kansas City this weekend, catch 2 games and be very tired, or we can kind of be a little bit closer to home and almost drop the cost in half. So that's kind of what we look at when we're comparing 2 trips side by side. So that's kind of the process where we look at tickets, hotel, parking, and then looking at kind of cost and how do we afford these trips. That's a question that some have asked us, and really a lot of it is us skimming off the top of a paycheck each time. Renee said I could share this, is that before Renee's hands get on the money, we just set aside an X dollar amount. We have our long-term 2-week vacation trips that we do budgets for, as well as these short-term baseball trips where we set aside X amount for our baseball trips and then X amount for our longer-term trips, which sometimes can be a baseball trip. But we also, as you know, like to do cruises. So we also set that aside. So that's kind of how we do that. Also, what do you do on the side to be able to generate income? I drive for Ubers where I just take all of that money and we put it in a vacation. It's just usually done to be able to do these fun experiences. So that's where that'll come in. I know that other people that I've spoken with, that if you're looking for opportunities, that they do shoveling services. If you're in the snowy areas, snowy regions, lawn service. I also know that some folks will do dog sitting, where they can take in 2 or 3 dogs a weekend, where they charge folks $35, $40 to house their dogs for the weekend. So I'm sure you can find things. I'm sure you all have kind of your side hustles on the side that you do. So that's kind of what we do. We also when we pull this money aside, we don't just set it in a savings account. We try to find a stock or something that typically is on a positive trending side where we can put that in, not some of these penny stocks where there's more volatility, but some of the blue chips where they have more consistent. We put our money in that to help grow that when we know that certain stocks are looking positive. So that's another aspect where we don't just let our money sit in a savings account and growing at 0.5%. So yeah, so I really appreciate you following along this video. Certainly, I will maybe put a blank document link. I'll make it a public document where everything is blank, so you can kind of play around with your own numbers. So I'll drop a link in the description below on how you can go about making your own spreadsheet, or if it's that doesn't work for you, that's fine too. But certainly appreciate you watching today. If you like the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to subscribe and with the notification bell on. I really appreciate you taking the time today to watch this video. If you have questions, go ahead and ask those questions below in the comments. I'd be happy to follow up. So thank you for watching.